This is Richie Incognito of the Buffalo Bills. You're listening to Locked On Bills, presented by Cover One.
Enjoy this special Locked On Bills edition featuring LockedOnBills.com contributors Anthony Sambrotto and Ryan Dukarm. Welcome back to another edition of Locked On Bills. This edition is brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Go ahead and get to their site, MyBookie.ag, and it's a great betting site. It's a site where they're going to match whatever you put down. So if you're feeling lucky this coming weekend, go ahead and get to their site, MyBookie.ag. You play, you win, you get paid. I want to go ahead and talk about some of the moves that happened this Tuesday because, typically Tuesdays are the days that the team brings in, guys they want to work out, guys that, they look to maybe augment or upgrade at certain positions on the team. And the Bills, of course, had to make some moves with Jordan Matthews, having surgery and Ramon Humber having surgery. So, Anthony, I want to start with you. You're obviously one of the contributors that contributes on LockedOnBills.com. So what do you have for us, man? What kind of moves are made today?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, it all started Sunday. The injury bug kind of finally got to the Bills. They've been, pretty lucky the first couple of weeks, but Jordan Matthews and Ramon Humber are going to be out for an extended period of time, in addition to Cole Anderson, who was just placed on injured reserve today. So it kind of started yesterday, Monday, when Walt Power was eligible to return from a 4-game suspension that he received in the offseason, and many thought that maybe he'd be the missing piece to come in and replace Jordan Matthews, but the Bills promptly released him. So Powell's off the roster, and then earlier this morning it broke that the Bills are going to bring back Philly Brown. Now, Philly Brown had a decent preseason. He knows Sean McDermott well, played 3 years in Carolina for McDermott and Brandon Beane last couple years. Caught 79 passes, 7 touchdowns, and averages 12.9 yards per catch, which maybe supplies a little bit of a deep threat for the Bills, which they need. We'll see how much he contributes. He can also help out on special teams a little bit, filling up for that bold void for Colt Anderson. And then 2 other signings today, Shamarko Thomas and Trey Elston, 2 safeties. Thomas is kind of an interesting story. You don't know what you're going to get out of him. Spent 4 years with the Steelers, mostly as a backup, but he did appear in 48 games for Pittsburgh, so he can certainly come in. And then we all know about Trey Elston, had a very impressive preseason, played for the Bills for the first 2 games, and then kind of was a surprise cut. The Bills moved him off the roster, quickly picked up by the Eagles. He was a free agent once again, and the Bills brought him in, so some more familiarity there.
Sure.
And to make room for those guys, the Bills released Rob Blanton and then Erik Lee on the defensive side of the football. So a bunch of moves being made, and you can kind of see the Bills bringing back players instead of going out and signing some veterans. They're bringing back guys who spent time in the system already.
No, and I'm glad you make that point because a lot of Bills fans want our front office to make moves. They wanted some kind of splash trade or something like that. And I didn't expect that to happen just because I believe that they are still thinking about building in the future and they want to keep those draft picks. So Ryan, kind of talk about maybe what you know about Philly Brown, and do you agree with going that route versus, making a splash trade?
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to make a splash trade mid-season. I don't think you see that in the NFL, obviously, but I really like bringing back Philly Brown. This offense is a complicated system. I think on the defensive side with McDermott's team, you could maybe get away with bringing in a new guy. But, you saw how sort of slow they were to pick it up in the preseason. That was a big complaint. Even the first few weeks, the offense was a little behind the defense of the regular season. So I think bringing back a guy who's in camp with them, was in the offseason program, that's the idea for them, is a guy who knows the system. He can step in and start playing right away. He's not going to take 2 or 3 weeks to learn the offense, learn the playbook, and then Matthews is healthy again. So.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's one of those things like, Matthews goes down. So he was been our top wide receiver. And it's one of those things like fans want that replacement. They want that replacement. You're not going to get that. You're right. I mean, it's going to take time for a receiver. If you make a splash trade, it's going to take time for that receiver to adjust to this scheme. You mentioned the complex scheme that has a lot to do with it. And so fans need to realize that, a guy's not going to be able to come in and make that much of a difference anyways if you were to make that big trade. So getting a guy like Brown, who's been in the system, obviously you guys all mentioned he's played in this system, earlier this season. So it's one of those things. He's not going to be a number 1 wide receiver though, and that's what fans need to realize. He's going to have a role. McDermott always says he's going to have a role, and the guys that were 2, 3, and 4 on the depth chart, the Zay Jones, the Andre Holmes, and Keegan Clays, those guys are now elevated on the depth chart, and now Philly Brown slots in there somewhere probably in the 3 range, and they'll find a role for him because again he's been in the system. So what about on the defensive side, Anthony? I mean, you had mentioned bringing back Elston and Anderson obviously going down with a broken arm. What kind of role can we expect from Elston? Is he going to be a good special teams player? I know after studying him a little bit this offseason, once we picked him up initially, to me he was a box safety. He looked all right in the preseason though.
Yeah, he did. And that's why, again, I said after those first two games, it was a little bit of a surprise move to release him for the Bills. But yeah, he looked good. He was obviously, a young guy. So he's still got to learn in the NFL. But with the way that Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde have been playing, some people thought earlier in the season the Bills maybe go out and sign Jarius Byrd or something like that, who actually just got signed by the Panthers today. But yeah, I know. So kind of a weird twist there for sure. But I personally loved Trey Elston in the preseason, and that was before we knew how good Poyer and Hyde were going to be. So that was especially cut after the first 2 weeks. But he's just a boost for that safety position. Going to come in special teams along with Thomas as well. And that's why he kind of got rid of Robert Blanton, because Elston and Thomas can help you out more on the special team side.
Yeah, and I mean, one thing that McDermott, when he was a defensive coordinator in Carolina last year, he literally had played no dime last year with Carolina. So they didn't use any of those 3 safety looks that a lot of teams are using nowadays. And yeah, Poyer and Hyde have been lights out this year, and of course, we're all worried about depth at that position. There's no doubt about it. Even with receiver, I mean, we just talked about receivers. We are always worried about that depth. And, the safeties, though, I worry once, if someone were to get injured or something, guys. I mean, can Elston fill in that role? I mean, we're not expecting him to be on the field with Hyde and Poyer, but can Elston and Shamarko Thomas, are those guys, Ryan, that you would trust if one of those starters were to go down?
Yeah, I mean, that's been the problem is, like Anthony said, we didn't know what we had in Poyer and Hyde, right? So it was especially worrisome coming into the season, the safety position. Once those guys started playing like they are right now, I forgot about it. I was like, oh, all right, like we have great safeties now, like cool.
Yeah, we're spoiled right now, yeah.
Right, exactly. But if somebody does go down, like, I don't know, I did like Elston through the preseason, through camp, and I think he could more of a role player though, right? I don't know if he's ready to step in and start. I think he's been in the system, like we talked about with Philly Brown, like definitely going to help if something does happen. The other thing though is I think you could maybe see, I know McDermott didn't play any dime with Carolina, but that's definitely helps when you have Kuechly and Thomas, right?
Sure.
They're kind of
very good points.
Athletes of safety. So do you start getting some of these depth safeties in just for 5-10 snaps a game, just in case, get them some live reps, just in case something does happen to Poyer or Hyde. And I'd be okay with that. I don't want them playing big time snaps. Put them in a place where they can absolutely succeed for a few snaps a game and get them sort of acclimated to things.
Yeah, and I'll say, when I scouted Elston prior to picking him up, I thought he was more of a box player, but he's that guy that could play, the flats in a cover 3. He's that doesn't have really good range. But I'll tell you what, in the preseason, they put him at a lot of single high looks to test him and see how much range he had. And he actually made a couple plays on the ball. So I'll say that he did impress me this preseason. But yeah, you're right. It's got to be limited snaps. I mean, he's got to have a role. It's got to be limited snaps. Obviously, they're going to expect him to play some special teams. Him or Thomas are going to, get some snaps on special teams. So, and I think that role will definitely help them, and it'll help them get their speed and legs back under them too, because they haven't obviously played in any games really. So,
right.
But we're going to switch gears here. We're going to start to look at some film, and Ryan, you came up with a great breakdown today on the bootleg throws that Tyrod Taylor had to Charles Clay, and it was I love it honestly, because the play design by Rick Dennison was beautiful. On top of what you broke down last week, the flood concepts that we ran against the Denver Broncos. So kind of talk about the building blocks, obviously, that Dennison inserted this week against the Atlanta Falcons.
Yeah, so I mean, even going back through, Dennison's an outside zone guy, right? Everybody sort of knows that about him. That's easy. And what you get off those outside zone looks are the fake outside zone and bootleg to the other side. So you saw that. My breakdown last week sort of focused on the 4-play scoring drive the Bills had, but the 3 passing concepts were all flood concepts off bootlegs. So obviously in the Atlanta Falcons advanced scouting report is, look, this is the outside zone run. You're going to get bootlegs off it. So the flood concept is a 3-man concept. You got a guy going deep down the field on a go route, sort of a deep crosser or a deep out route in the middle level, and then a route to the flat. So it sort of creates 2 high-low reads for 2 defenders on that side. What the Bills did this week is they sort of relied on the fact that everybody knows they're going to do that.
Sure.
They boot Tyrod and send, at least in the play we're going to break down in a second here, send a route deep, send a deep crosser. So they had Matthews going deep, Zay coming across on the crossing route. And what they do is Charles Clay was on that side of the field. He'd sell the outside zone block and then just sort of release to the other side, sort of jogging like he's not doing anything.
Right.
And then he'd turn on the Jets, get vertical on the opposite side of the field from the bootleg. So what happened then was Tyrod boots towards Matthews and Jones' side of the field, sticks his foot in the ground, comes back to the other side, and hits Clay deep. And those were the two biggest passing plays for the Bills all day. So 44 yards to Clay and 34 yards to Clay.
Right. No, that's great. And, before we get to the film, we're going to take a brief second for our sponsor here.
Every week I get questions about fantasy advice, betting advice, who they should bet on this week, the Patriots or the Steelers, Chicago or Detroit. Where you're betting at is just as important as who you're betting on. And that's why I always tell people, go to mybookie.ag. MyBookie has been in business for many years. It's got a rock solid rep. They do 100% cash bonuses, so you're making money for doing nothing. They pay you back in 2 days. So all your winnings, you'll get it in your account in 2 business days. This is a company that I believe in. I think that you should give it a shot. I mean, like I said, they pay out in 2 days. They'll give you bonuses. They have in-game live betting and the most rewarding player perks in the business. Check it out. You go onto their mobile site, you'll see it's very easy to navigate and makes wagering a breeze. So join now, and MyBookie will match your deposit with up to 100% bonus. Use promo code LOCKEDON to activate the offer. Visit mybookie.ag today. You play, you win, you get paid.
All right, now we're back for the film portion of Locked On Bills here, presented by Cover One. And as we had just mentioned, the Bills had amazing success off of play action, specifically on first down, because the 2 big plays of Charles Clay, and this is the one we're going to break down. This was the first one in the second quarter on 1st and 10. The defense, they bit hard on this. And, I always say that regardless of how well you're running the ball, this stretch action in Dennison's system is going to make people move horizontally. And the Bills took advantage of a fast defense, a fast flow defense, a lot of athletes on that side of the ball, but they also took advantage of the scheme, right, Ryan? And what I want to point out here is obviously to start, when a quarterback comes to the line, who's the first guy they're finding, Ryan?
The deep safety. See if
Sure.
it's single high, see if it's too high. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the Bills are in 21 personnel, and they have the ball on the right hash. They have DeMarco and Tolbert as the running backs in the backfield. And to the bottom of the screen, you're going to see Zay Jones. You're going to see him run a nice deep crossing route. To the top of the screen, you're going to have Jordan Matthews running a deep comeback. And we talked about what the Bills did last week versus the Denver Broncos. Well, again, they built on that this week. To the top of the screen, you're going to have Jordan Matthews running a deep comeback. To the bottom of the screen, Zay Jones running a deep cross. You're going to have all the action right here, right, Ryan? You're going to have all the action on that stretch zone, and Tyrod obviously putting the ball in the belly of that guy to get flow from the second-level defenders.
Absolutely.
And Clay does a great job here. I want you to talk about it once I hit play here, because you're going to see Clay come across here and then shoot up the sideline or up the numbers. And talk about what you're seeing as far as coverage goes, Ryan, and basically how Clay gets matched up with Keanu Neal.
So Keanu Neal is sort of this box safety linebacker down at the bottom of the screen right here. The Falcons are playing some sort of single high cover 3 pattern match. You can see at the top of the screen, the corner over Matthews. He's executing a zone turn. He's turning into the middle of the field when he's dropping. Shows he's in zone, but the guy at the bottom is following Zay Jones across the screen. So some sort of pattern match.
Sure.
And that leaves Clay coming to the flat at the bottom, and he's going to be sort of matched up on Keanu Neal here. So what he's doing is he's selling his outside zone block to the right, going with the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And then he just sort of releases and jogs across the field. You can see the offensive line, once Tyrod moves away, their job's pretty much done. The guys at the bottom are sort of standing around. And so Clay sort of takes advantage of that. And once he sees Keanu Neal take one step forward, he thinks there might be a screen to Shady at the bottom of the screen. He's turning on the Jets. He's getting vertical. So all the routes going to the opposite side of the field, they're pulling the underneath linebackers are pulling the single high safety, and that leaves Clay open with, a step or two over Keanu Neal, and Tyrod drops this thing on a dime. So
yeah, it's a beautiful throw, Ryan.
Yeah.
On the run, I mean, he doesn't get his feet set as he's getting hit. I mean, this is a big league throw. So, and the reason it worked is because this was how they were beating the Denver Broncos, was these passing plays off the bootleg. So they designed this. You can see Clay's not sort of running the scramble drill as Tyrod comes back to his side. This is designed all the way to sort of sell that underneath and then get deep. And it works perfectly.
Yeah, I was really impressed with this play call, guys, because, again, I said, this is within the structure of Dennison's scheme, but it also attacks a scheme that Tyrod actually played pretty well against last season in Seattle. This is, that Quinn scheme where they play a lot of, press, a lot of pattern matching coverage. And, I mean, this took full advantage of it, like you had mentioned, Ryan. I mean, it's one of those plays that obviously they're fast flow. They want to flow to the ball here, but they also, with Tyrod's ability to break, contain, and get outside the pocket. I mean, see, look at all the draw he has here to that side of the field. I mean,
exactly.
It's crazy how much, his legs can affect the play call. And that's why he was always seen as a really good fit in this scheme. And you'll see Duke Riley right here. He does a good job. He clears that it's not a run, and he finds that crosser. That's what those linebackers are taught to do. So he finds Zay Jones. And, with Tyrod rolling to his left, I mean, he can only really throw to one side of the field when he's running full speed to his left. But you can see right here, this was, and you mentioned it, this is totally a design throwback here.
Exactly.
You can see Tyrod wants to throw it right here, but he's not able to get set to throw it because of the pressure from Claiborne and Grady Jarrett. So he has to make something happen here. And this is what Tyrod does best. When you need to play outside of the structure, Ryan, talk about what Tyrod is able to do.
I mean, that's his game, right? And that's why he's such a great fit in this offense, is he can get out on the move, put him in space. And if I'm a defender playing against Tyrod, the second he gets out in the open field, I'm terrified, because he can, I mean, look at this throw. He can throw it on the run, going to his left, going to his right, but he can absolutely burn you. So that's why they got two guys going full speed after him. They need to make sure he does not break contain of the pocket. I mean, that's part of the reason Keanu Neal is probably biting early. It's like, I got to get upfield. I got to make sure he doesn't get downfield. And that's why Clay was able to get open deep. I mean, it was really well picked up to the side with Matthews and Zay Jones. The Atlanta defense did a really nice job of picking it up. That's exactly what they took advantage of, is everybody's going to go to that side off the boot action, and we'll leave Clay sneaking deep. And the funny thing is, Atlanta's actually a big fan of this play on offense with Kyle Shanahan. This was one of their big plays. They'd get Austin Hooper a lot of the time last year, getting in on a play like this. So I really like the way they designed this, and it was executed perfectly.
I mean, this is Anthony. I mean, you know about the coaching tree. You can go down the coaching tree for us as far as Rico Dennison and this offense, because this is a staple, guys. So I mean, name some of the coaches that Dennison kind of brought this play into our playbook from.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, you go back to how successful it was in Denver and in Houston, obviously, and they won a Super Bowl with kind of the system with Gary Kubiak and all that stuff. And in Houston, you got to think about where that franchise was, and then with Matt Schaub, when they brought it in there, the team started winning games, started producing on offense.
Yeah.
But I was just going to say, my two takeaways from that play, great film breakdown there by you guys, of course, but just 26 out of the other 32 quarterbacks, in the NFL, that's a sack. First of all, that's the first thing that jumps out at you. But out of it's just the way that he can move from those two defenders, barreling down on him. And then secondly, of course, Charles Clay. It's kind of been said enough this year, but it's still amazing. 112 yards. He's this guy's number one receiver far and away. And it's just another impressive route by him. And it was a tough catch he made in coverage, and it was a big point in the game for him too.
Yeah, it was, all around. That was a really good game plan. They wanted to attack that single high scheme with some vertical passes, and they did it in such a way. And with guys that, typically, I know Clay has been stretching the field pretty well this year. He's been tremendous this year, which is it's kind of astonishing when you compare him to the prior 2 years that we've had this guy, and we have not been able to get explosive plays like that on a regular, with teams knowing it's coming too, So it was that to me was kind of shocking all in itself with the staff that we had the prior 2 years. But it's again, I don't think Tyrod is getting enough love for these throws week to week, guys. Am I wrong, Ryan?
No, I mean, the 2 throws to Clay were really – the throw to O'Leary against Denver is one of the best throws I've seen in a long time. I mean, but like – and the thing is, coming in the year, everybody says Tyrod, like, all right, well, you need a good running game. You need these weapons. I mean, to be honest, he beat Denver and Atlanta without either of those.
Sure.
Like – and it's sure he didn't throw for 300 yards, but that's not what we're asking him to do. It's not what the Bills need. It's don't turn the ball over. You hit 2 or 3 plays like this in a game, and the way the defense is playing, I'll take that formula every single time. No interceptions, 2 plays over 30 yards in offense, and the way the defense plays, that's a winning formula for me.
Yeah, I mean, how about this? He only threw the ball 20 times. 12 completions. He only had to throw it 20 times.
Right.
And I just think, there's how they say there's a rep count for some of these running backs today. Maybe the Bills just going to give one for Tyrod. 25 passes thrown, because I mean, in the way this offense is run, the way this team is run, he doesn't have to throw it in Aaron Rodgers' number 51 times a game.
Right. Exactly. And I think even with the run game not performing, it's LaShawn McCoy back there. The play
you have to respect it. Yeah.
Right. You have to. And like you said, Erik, the outside zone sells play action so well because everybody's moving. You have to respect it. So I think play action has been a huge part of this offense so far, and then it's going to continue to be. It has to be.
Yeah, when the ball's in the hands of Tyrod Taylor every play, and you have LaShawn McCoy behind him, and some of those intermediate weapons that also have the ability to stretch a field in Charles Clay, and even now the other Clay, he's able to stretch a field. So I understand why they want to just develop guys that they have and not go out and make a big splash play, because with the 2 guys that they have in the backfield in Taylor and McCoy, it's going to open up things, not just vertically, but horizontally. And that's where this offense is going to thrive. And we just need efficient play that, like Tyrod has given us the last couple of weeks. Don't turn it over. Defenses turn around. That's complementary football. And that's how we're going to win games this year. That's why we're 3-1, so far through the first quarter. So with that said, guys, I appreciate you joining me. Anthony, where can we find you on Twitter?
Find me Sambrotto95 on Twitter.
All right, Ryan, what about you, buddy?
At DB_Ryan_Dukarm.
Thanks for coming on, guys. And if you want to see these guys work, because these guys are tremendous workers, there's a reason why I brought these guys on. They have a wealth of knowledge, and the guys that, obviously contribute on LockedOnBills.com, on Cover One, or even Grandstand Sports Network, who we're also part of. We have guys that can do a little bit of everything. That's why it's an awesome team. Yeah. I'm excited to have you guys on, and we're going to have you on more. So definitely check them out on Twitter, guys. Obviously, find our work online as well. Thanks for joining us. This edition was obviously brought to you by MyBookie.ag. Have a good day, guys.